In 2011, Myanmar's military government handed power to a quasi-civilian successor, and Myanmar's estimated 60 million consumers have tempted many to open businesses in the country.
We have a population of roughly, I say roughly because we don't know exactly how many people there are, about 50 to 60 million people. Geographically, we are located between China and India, and we have a large coastline. We have a very young population. The lack of bank penetration and the lack of mobile phone penetration are the two most obvious and immediate obstacles we have. In most of the countries where mobile banking is very successful, there is over 100% penetration or very, very high percentage of penetration. In Myanmar, we have maybe less than 10% at best, but that will change, and we know that in the next couple of years, in the next year, there will be good maybe 60 to 80% penetration. Even if there isn't, it will be a significant percent of the population will have access to mobile banking, mobile network, and mobile phone services as well. So we are using that really as a way of slowly rolling out our solution of branchless banking as well. So we will roll out with the telcos. You have to really be here, and you have to talk to people, and really meetings and businesses are not done over the telephone call or on email. So you have to make time to see them. You have to create some sort of personal relationship with people. So that's quite important. So if you want to do things in Myanmar, you have to be here. The second thing is it's a frontier market. And the reason why it is a frontier market is because there are certain risk elements that exist in this country which do not exist in Europe or in the US. So you can't be expected to have the same level of risk checks and the risk profiling that you would do. And thirdly, it really is, you have to be, I guess, be very flexible and very accommodating in the way things are done.
I came back here 2 years ago from California. I was out of the country about 16 years. And before that, I was involved in Silicon Valley, initially with a startup. It's called Blue Lithium. We were one of the pioneer company in the Silicon Valley in the online advertising space. It was later acquired by Yahoo. And then I went to work at Google for 4 years. And then I decided to come back. Before I came back, it took me about 1 year for me to actually decide. There was a lot of tentative signs. Actually, there was no clear signs. At the moment when I came in, we just had an election. There was a lot of unknowns and uncertainties, but there was this indication that led me to think that reform is underway. And so I took a big risk, and then I came back. When I came back, there was not even a stable supply of electricity. So it was a very frustrating experience to actually start thinking about, I thought about starting this business, but actually implementing and opening one was a huge challenge. So I came back, I wanted to do 3 things. Travel is one of the main initiatives I started. Primarily, I focus on travel because of the macro indicators. If you look at the tourism statistic, the numbers speak for itself. If you look at Myanmar tourist arrival, a year ago it was around 1 million, and last year it was around 2 million, so that was a 92% growth. So if you compare that with Thailand, the Thailand tourist arrival is 22 million a year, and Cambodia is about 5 million a year. Vietnam is about 7 to 8 million a year. So Myanmar at 2 million, comparatively speaking, is still has a lot of potential to grow.
And today at the Durian Heat, we're going to be sharing about younger entrepreneurs in Myanmar and also his own company at a young age. All the way from Myanmar, his name is Jeff. He's a founder of nextlabs.co. So stay tuned with us at Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. You're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing, and now you're at Daily Knowledge, brought to you by Durian ASEAN as well as ASAP Science. Look for them, ASAP Science, on YouTube/ASAP Science for more details and subscribe to their channels.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hi, welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're at the Durian Heat with Grace here. So we will be talking about this entrepreneur as well as the startup scenes in Myanmar. And today we have invited Jeff from Myanmar, who is a founder of nextlabs.co.
Hi, Grace. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for joining for our interviews this morning.
You're welcome.
So before we start our interviews, perhaps you could briefly introduce about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Jeff, as you know, so I'm the CEO and founder of Next. So at Next, we build mobile apps in social space as well as e-commerce space. So right now we have multiple apps on the Play Store. On the other hand, we also build apps for clients, enterprise clients, small and medium businesses, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So you are also venturing into SMBs, but are you focusing mainly in Myanmar? If I'm not mistaken, you studied university in Singapore.
That's right. So our main focus is right now in Myanmar, but we also have clients from Singapore, Malaysia even, and other parts of Southeast Asian countries, and even China. Right. So we're not very limited to any geographical area, but since we're based in Myanmar, majority of our clients are from Myanmar.
Mm-hmm. As a young founder as well as CEO of your own company, how does it feel like? And how did you start with all this company with the idea of developing mobile app?
Right. So it all started actually when I was young. So I basically migrated to Singapore when I was 16 to continue my studies. Mm-hmm. So since then, I was actually freelancing for different businesses in Singapore, essentially building websites. And when the iPhone became popular, I moved on to building apps for iPhone and slowly on Android. So that's essentially my background. So when I graduated from Polytechnic, that was about when I was 19, I had the idea of starting a company. But back then Myanmar hasn't really opened up, so there are lots of risks, there are lots of barriers to actually enter the market. So instead of actually coming back to do a startup, I actually joined a university in Singapore, which is Singapore Management University. But what happened is during my first year, I think it was in second semester, I really wanted to start a company. So I started looking around and found a few people who would invest in the idea of starting a mobile app business in Myanmar. So I talked with a few, and I really got along with this angel investor who is the first investor that actually put money into the company. Mm-hmm. So things went along pretty well, and after 2 weeks after meeting him, we received our first funding. That was in 2013, April. Mm-hmm. I was 21. Mm-hmm. So we started the company, and over, if I'm not wrong, for the past, for about a year and a half, I was actually still living in Singapore. Right. So I was actually managing the whole thing remotely. I was getting clients primarily from Singapore because, as a founder, I'm the main sales guy. So I was getting clients from Singapore all along. But, doing that for about 1.5 years, I realized that, I really needed to be on the ground to actually form teamwork, understanding, and all the stuff with the team. So I decided to give up on my education. So I dropped out from SMU. And then I moved back to Myanmar. We raised another funding, and we've now grown into 20 people. We actually started off as 6. So over the past 2 years, we've grown into above 20.
That's pretty rapid movement, I will say, for the past 2 years, and then especially for startups. Well, but my question here is, you studied in Singapore and you stopped continuing your major in Singapore, but then you wanted to continue with your career by developing this company. But my question here is, you also mentioned that back then the mobile app or such was not really popular, and also not much in demand from clients. But why did you choose this particular area?
Right, so there are a couple of things. So first of all, when I started the company, Myanmar was just about to start opening up. Right. So the new telecom companies, which is Telenor and Ooredoo, they just got their licenses. So back then, I think the number of mobile phones are very, very limited because SIM cards were so expensive and nobody could really afford it.
Right.
So it seems, I mean, to you, it probably seems radical that, you know, I decided to come back to work on mobile app business because nobody really was using smartphones anyway. But what we're actually betting on is the future, and the future itself is what really excites me because, you know, with the new SIM cards, with the new telcos, things are going to move much faster.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we have close to 10 million mobile customers, mobile subscribers out of 60 million people overall population.
Mm-hmm.
So the number actually grew pretty quickly and pretty impressive for 2 years. So that's what we were betting on. And another part of the reason is because since this is like the inception of the new mobile industry, we could really shake things up. So we could really define what the industry is going to be looking like in the next 5 years. So that's the exciting thing that interests me. So that's why I decided to come back.
Right. That's very interesting. And then you already foresaw what will happen in your country, and that also made your decision firmly. But let's talk about Myanmar. The startup scene in general, is it really booming up in Myanmar as well?
I believe it is because, you know, with the new telcos coming in, actually everything is depending on the influx of mobile subscribers and more people getting online every day. So definitely there are more and more startups doing a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I look back 3 years ago, before I decided to start the company, there was no startup at all, right? So there are only corporations servicing different enterprises,
right,
you know, bigger clients and all this stuff. So there wasn't really anybody who was really giving service to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a change that we've been seeing in the past 2 years. So right now we have social services, we have loyalty services, we have all kinds of different services that you can imagine. We have deal services and so on and so forth.
Right.
So in that essence, the number of startups are really booming. It's also, I mean, looking at the number of users who are actually using these services, it's also very impressive.
Right.
I mean, there are services who are being viewed at least having like 1 million hits per month. That wasn't popular 2 years ago. I mean, that wasn't possible 2 years ago.
So it looks like a lot of people are utilizing all those mobile apps as well as when it comes to technology in general, and that also helps your company to generate even more and to be able to come up with the more mobile apps development, I guess.
Yep, totally. So I think the mobile space itself, I mean, if you look at the personal computing industry, right? So I think for Myanmar people, a lot of people has already skipped the desktop. So we've actually leapfrogged into mobile. So all these smartphones are actually the first personal computer device that most of the people have used. So we have a lot of opportunities to actually define the experience of these smartphones.
Right. Well, it's very interesting to hear from you, Jeff, because coming from the youth perspectives on entrepreneur or even startup in Myanmar, so overall, what is your perspectives in general when it comes to your company setting up in Myanmar and dealing with the clients?
Well, it was actually pretty difficult at first because, you know, like mobile phones in Myanmar, they don't go along very well.
Right.
But I mean, in the start, the demand was very little because I mean, there wasn't really any use for mobile applications for different enterprises. But that has changed, and it has changed completely for good. Now we have clients asking us about various kinds of mobile phones. For example, ebooks, I mean, newsreader, so on and so forth. Even for large enterprises, they are actually trying to find ways to use mobile applications to actually increase productivity of their employees. So in that essence, I'm really positive about the future.
Right. That sounds very, very positive as well here. Well, to talk more about the startups and also to talk about your company, before that, of course, there were ups and downs, and you mentioned a little bit about it. But how about the finance part? How did you manage your to make it easier money?
Right. So, well, I guess I'm lucky, and I was lucky that I was in the right place at the right time, which is in Singapore, because 2 years ago there was no there was no VC firm in Myanmar, and there was no equity firms, so nobody would actually back your idea. And the only people who would back your idea are Burmese, traditional businessmen,
Right.
and they're not the right fit for a tech company like us because they are mainly focused on ROI, and they want the ROI very quickly. So in our tech industry, you don't get ROI tomorrow, right? It's a long-term investment with a high risk. So a lot of the Burmese business people are not ready to back that kind of industry yet.
Right.
So 2 years ago, if you want to raise money, you need to go out of the country. And in fact, all of the funded startups in Myanmar are actually being funded by VCs from Singapore or Thailand.
Right. So could you perhaps make some comparison among these three countries that you mentioned, Myanmar, Singapore, and Thailand as well? How are the internet penetrations and the usage of mobile apps generally?
Right. So, in terms of internet penetration, I believe Singapore is the best, followed by Thailand, and then Myanmar, even now. And in terms of the usage of mobile phones, I think Myanmar is about to, go past beyond at least Singapore, because it's really, really cheap to not only buy the mobile phones thanks to Chinese vendors, but it's also cheap to actually use the service. It only costs around a few cents to get internet access, so that really opens up a lot of opportunities.
Well, the internet access, I believe it's getting better and then easier. However, still Southeast Asia is very well known for having very poor internet penetrations compared to other countries around the world. So how did you vision this? I mean, how did you overcome this by creating mobile app to this issue?
Right. So regarding the internet penetration, right? Just looking at Myanmar, we have at least 1/5 of the population covered by mobile penetration.
Right.
So that's a pretty high number, even for a Southeast Asian country. If you can't really compare this to other countries like US or European countries, because the technology is advanced, they have better infrastructure and all that. But taking away all that stuff, just by looking at penetration,
right.
I think the growth is really, really good in Southeast Asia,
right.
and I think that's where the future is.
You're with Jeff at the Durian Heat. He's from Myanmar and also founder of nextlabs.co. The interview will be continued after this short break, so stay tuned with us at Durian ASEAN.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're still at the Durian Heat to talk about the issues as well as to bring up a lot of topics from Southeast Asia. And you're with Jeff from Myanmar, who is the founder of nextlabs.co, to talk about his company as well as the startup scenes in Myanmar. So we just talked about briefly about the startup scenes and what are the issues, what are the ups and downs that you went through. But to add on that, perhaps we can talk about from the government support here. I'm sure when you started your own company to find the right people for your team and to reach out to the audience as well as to your clients, there has been a lot of ups and downs. But however, how is the government support towards this area when it comes to startup scenes in Myanmar?
Sure. So, looking back, there was actually close to zero support from the government.
Right, zero you mean?
Yes, close to zero. So, I was in Singapore, so I pretty much did my market research in Singapore. So, for example, if you start up a company in Singapore, there are lots of grants, there are lots of loans, there are lots of schemes that you can leverage on. It's the same goes for Thailand as well. And the startup cost is really low, and it's very easy to start a company in Singapore. All you need to do is to have internet access. You just fill up a couple of papers, forms. Once you have the right paper in place, you can pretty much start a company. But that is not the case with Myanmar. So when I was starting up, what I had to do is travel to another city to actually register my company. Because all the government officials all the government offices are in a different city.
What are the companies that are accepted that you can start in your own country, Myanmar?
Well, you can start technically you can start any kind of company that you want.
Right.
But when we were actually filling up a form to start a company, we couldn't find any category that fits our business actually. So at the end of the day, we actually selected a more generic term called services instead of a provider for different internet services. So we just selected whatever that we could to actually start the ball rolling. So the government has not really approved the nature of online businesses, especially e-commerce and etc. There are no particular laws or rules around those types of businesses. So and the government hasn't been active in approving such kind of businesses. So in that sense, you can really see that the government support is actually lacking a lot.
Well, until now, is it the same? Because Myanmar is sort of having the transition from to move on the democratic system.
Yep, exactly. So, there are a few people lobbying it, but I think as the government, which is handling the country that's just opening up, I'm sure they have lots of work to do.
Right.
But I think it would be really, really good if they could at least look into the future of technology and innovation and really take actions to support these innovations right now, so that the younger generation, the new generation of startups can actually leverage on different schemes or at least have official support for the kind of businesses.
Right. Well, in your personal experience so far, what is the most popular mobile apps the younger generation have been using so far?
Right. So, if you mean locally or international brands?
Locally, and you can go further to international.
Sure. So for local brands, the really popular ones are around advertising and classifieds.
Right.
So for example, property websites, car listing websites are really, really popular. And they are the only form of e-commerce that we have here. So, they are very popular. And there are also other people actually doing a form of e-commerce, selling clothes online. So, but they are not actually apps. They're actually going through Facebook. So they use Facebook as their main shop.
Right.
So those are the more popular forms of businesses. And secondary ones are actually in social. So we have a few social apps coming up. We have a few existing in the market. We also built one called Hush. So those are catching up as well. But in terms of international brands, definitely Facebook. Secondly, Fiber.
Right.
Almost everyone in the country has Facebook and Fiber.
So when it comes to mobile app, and the popularity is amazingly increasing, especially from the younger generation. And being a young entrepreneur in Myanmar, do you collaborate with other entrepreneurs or other startups in Myanmar?
Yeah, definitely. So we're actually right now building a new product called Snapshots. And it's entirely built by a team of two.
Oh, it's called
and those two are Snapshots, that's right. So Snapshots is basically an app that allows you to create your own stickers to be used in different messaging apps.
Right.
So the app is actually built by two of our interns who are only 16.
Wow, they're very, very young. Just
they're
like
very young.
That's the age when you went to Singapore, isn't it?
Yep. So we didn't. For me, I personally didn't have the chance to build an app, and the mobile industry has opened doors for every age possible.
Right. That's very interesting. Well, when it comes to mobile app development, how do you come up with the ideas? How do you study what market or what the clients really, really want? Unless the client really want you to do, like they want you to develop this particular app. But from the company side, how do you come up with your own app for something that people have been wanting to have? How do you study the market?
Right. So we usually go through market surveys. So it's a good thing that we have interns in our office. So usually we just ask the interns whether an idea is good or not. The other way is to actually look at the popular startups from the US or even UK and so on and so forth. So there are various ways to do it. And another way is to actually go through the lives of those youngsters and see what's missing.
So the team members will actually go to the field and to study the whole market, is it?
Yep, they will either ask friends, they will ask random strangers on the streets, they will ask friends of friends, so on and so forth.
Oh, that's very interesting. So we'll take another short break. When we come back, perhaps we'll talk about what's the next hot startup scenes in Myanmar with Jeff.
Myanmar is recently open, so there are a lot of opportunity. It's very tempting to go into a lot of industry. So what I would encourage to the potential entrepreneur is to get an acute understanding of the market and then focus on a particular area of the market that meets the real needs of the segments that you're targeting after. And then the next step is how you're going to develop this. Are you going to develop it on your own, or are you going to develop with a partner? You know only the best, how you're equipped with. Once you find that, you need to have the focus and the commitment to really go after the market until the time that you feel is successful.
And next up, you'll be listening to YouTube Exception, where Myanmar Focus Daily is questioning why is Myanmar attracting young entrepreneurs living abroad to return home Myanmar. And don't forget to stay tuned with us at the Durian Heat. We're still with Jeff, the founder of nextlabs.co from Myanmar.
Mingalaba, welcome to Myanmar Focus Daily. Here I am in downtown Yangon. As I walk along the street, I can see many construction sites going on, like this one behind me. Myanmar at this time is not only attracting foreign investors to come in, it also attracts the educated locals who study abroad to come back and grab plenty of business opportunities in their homeland. Our program met with one rising entrepreneur who has recently come back to his home country with a doctoral degree in banking from Switzerland and started up his research firm here. He is Dr. Ong Thura, the CEO and founder of Thura Swiss research and consulting firm. For this episode, we will get to know his company and the trend of foreign investors who have expressed their interest in investing in Myanmar.
Our company is a rather young company, so we started January 2012 as a research and consulting company. Our main work up to now has been mainly in the research field, so we are doing for mainly foreign customers, market research, we are doing surveys, we are checking profitability of certain industries, who are the possible competitors, what is the market capacity. So mainly up to now customized reports.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what kind of services do you offer to your clients and who are they from mostly?
I would say our customers are worldwide. We have two types of customers, sometimes the end customers, sometimes but also intermediaries. So this could be research companies, international consulting companies. But let's say 60 to 70% of our customers are from Asia, and a lot of customers are coming from Japan.
Mm-hmm. Japan.
Yes.
What are they interested in which sector?
It's fairly broad, so it's not that I could say they're interested in only this sector or another sector. We have seen interest, for example, in the hotel market. We have been seeing interest in retail market, oil and gas industry. There were companies that were interested to analyze state-owned enterprises, pharmaceutical market. So we've seen pretty the whole range across, the whole spectrum. 2 or 3 months, a lot more interest in Myanmar, especially in the research area. But it doesn't mean that they are actually also investing in Myanmar, but they want to know much more about the market.
So can I just say that they express their interest, but they're not getting the deal done?
To some extent. I think there might be some countries or some companies that get the deal done. But up to now, with our customers, a lot have just researched the market, but are still hesitant about continuing.
Why are they hesitating about investing in Myanmar?
I think it's understandable. There's a lot of interest in Myanmar, there's a lot of hype in the media. But generally, if you're an investor who thinks long term over the next 20, 30 years, it doesn't matter if you come into the market now or you come in 2 years. If you're a manufacturer, it might be even too early to come to Myanmar because you have missing infrastructure, high costs and so on. So manufacturing will take a bit time. Of course, if you're an oil and gas company, if you're a telecom company, you have to be here now because the licenses are awarded right in the moment. So this kind of companies have to be here. But different sectors are not the same, you know. In some sectors you need to be here, in some sectors you can still wait.
From Myanmar Focus Daily next week, Dr. Ong Thurat will still be with us. He will reveal that which type of business should come into Myanmar now and which one can wait.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're at the Durian Heat with Jeff, who is the founder of nextlabs.co from Myanmar. We've been talking about lots of stuff from startup scenes and his own company Next, and also younger generations, their perspectives and being an entrepreneur. But let's go a bit further to talk about startup scenes in Myanmar. So Jeff, what is the next hot startup scenes there in your own country there?
Right, so I think the next startup scene would be actually reaching out to rural areas, something that reaches out to rural areas. So, for example, it could be education, it could be health, anything that reaches to the other, 40 million people who are living in minor cities or even villages. So, to name a few, I think, so for example, do you know Alibaba?
Alibaba, yes, for sure.
Yes, so, right, so something similar to Alibaba would be nice, something, that actually brings products from the farmers or rural areas and export them into different countries, maybe, and have all through online services. So something like that would actually be hot, because we're an agricultural country and we have lots of agricultural products, rice and etc. And in fact, many of the neighboring countries are actually importing stuff to their country from Myanmar. So only if we could democratize the whole process and make sure that all of the farmers are actually receiving what they're supposed to receive in terms of profits, that would be the next hot thing.
Right, okay. That's a really positive thing that is coming from you. But let's go to your own field, which is mobile. When it comes to rural areas, is it easy to reach those people who live in suburban areas in Myanmar?
Right, so it was hard at first, but it's now getting a lot easier thanks to the the three telcos actually. So the internet access has been given to different parts of the country, not all, but at least 50% of the country is now being covered by the internet. So it's getting easy and easier to actually access those people. But the hard thing is to actually determine the right marketing technique to actually deliver the services to them. So we're still trying to figure out a way to actually reach the customers, but what we've been doing right now is to actually go to those places and market it.
Oh, so you go there and physically and then explain to them from scratch.
Right, that's what we had to do with a couple of our clients, because we also provide marketing services to some of our bigger clients. So we had to actually go down to those places and we had to actually give user training to those people who are in the villages and make sure they understand how to leverage on these platforms.
Right. Well, that's very encouraging. I'm sure there are lots of younger generations who are looking at to become entrepreneurs or even start up their own companies. So what would you encourage, or what's your recommendation to all those coming up startup people, especially college students?
I guess my main advice would be for them not to be afraid and to just do it, because especially the Burmese people, we are very conservative people, and we take a lot of calculations before we do something.
I see.
So that actually prevents us from actually taking risk. So I would rather advise these younger generation to not really follow what your parents say, not calculate too much, and to just do it and then see how it goes. I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't calculate, but they should take calculated risk.
Other than the being conservative as a whole, as culture and the society color there in Myanmar, what are the other restrictions that younger
to make sure that they can actually start up, because just thinking about starting up will not make a startup. You need to actually go do it.
There are many people who are thinking of doing the startup, and going to it is taking another steps.
Right.
But then, what would you recommend them to actually step out from all those comfort zone they're in?
Right. So, there are two ways. So, first of all, is to get into the community. So, there's a very small there's an active but very small community, startup community in Yangon. So the best way is to actually talk to them. So all of us are friendly,
right.
and we're not, we would share our ideas, and we are very transparent. So talk to us. What I would like to really suggest is to actually just go out and learn about the things that you don't know. Especially, you need to network like crazy. Mm-hmm. So you need to be in the community. For example, we have a very small but active tech community here. So you need to, if you're starting up as a tech startup, you need to be in that community. Mm-hmm. From that community, you can meet like-minded people, like-minded youth, or even a co-founder, or even an investor. So what I'm saying is, you need to really go out more. You need to attend events. You need to attend networking events and all the stuff, and start building up the network. So once you start building up the network, what you need to do is to have an idea, to form an idea, and tell everyone about your idea. So what I see usually is that, the young people, they're very scared of losing the idea to someone else.
Right.
But what I want to say is, it doesn't really matter, because ideas are ideas. What it really takes to build a startup is just the execution and all the planning that's needed. So even if someone steals the idea, if he doesn't have proper planning or proper execution, he will never be able to pull that off. So don't be scared to share the idea. And the main advantage of sharing an idea is that, more and more people can actually feedback on the idea before you actually go and do it.
Do you think the all those young generations in Myanmar, they are becoming more innovative and more creative?
There are lots of hidden gems around. But the good thing is that they are being discovered almost every day. So these kids are actually building products that even us as a young adult can't really produce. So that's really inspiring. So what we really need is a channel to actually tell these stories to other youngsters, especially college kids, to inspire them, and then to actually motivate them to start doing, the actual coding, building up the skills, networking, and all this stuff. But seeing at the industry now, I guess in the next 5 or 10 years, the whole industry is going to be taken over by these youngsters.
Exactly. So it is very important for these young startup people to come up with innovative and creative ideas to make the Myanmar, and also to Myanmar, more developed country, as well as to contribute to the society as well. So before we end the interview today, what is your message to our listeners today?
Well, my main message for all the entrepreneurs out there, or people, especially to those who are trying to start up, like I said before, not to be afraid, and to just go do it, and to network like crazy.
Well, thank you for joining our interviews this morning at Durian Heat.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for interviewing me as well.
All right. Okay, goodbye.